welcome everyone that's here with us tonight to the September CAPMAC meeting. Let me first of all ask, do we have any visitors with us tonight? I know I had contact with 3 different people who had asked if they could join with us tonight, so I'm hoping we will see them. If anyone is here as a visitor and would like to introduce themselves, this would be the right time. Okay. Well, let me just go ahead and move on because I'm sure we're going to have additional people join as we go ahead. First of all, we're up to 68 members. Sounds like we may or may not change with what Tom said a little earlier. Social media, I want to remind everybody that we have our website, we have a Twitter feed, we have Facebook pages, we have a YouTube channel where the recordings of our meetings are available to watch afterwards, and we have a Slack group where we have quite a bit of discussion going on from time to time. Tonight's program is going to be in 2 parts. First, we're going to have Roberto Perez to do a brief technical tip on how to create cool and useful graphics using Apple's Keynote. And followed with that, we're going to have Fozzie Bayman talk about 5G and what is it we should be expecting when 5G finally rolls out. Before we get to that, though, let me go ahead and introduce the board. The same folks every week. Maybe I shouldn't have said old, but the same folks that you see every week. That are organizing our meetings. I do want to make a mention that we will be having the election. We will have a presentation of a slate of officers in October with voting in November. If you are interested in running for one of the board offices, contact Nancy, and she's the one that is chairman of the election committee and is going to be putting together the slate of officers, or the slate of those who are running for office, I should say. Membership on us. Officially, dues ran out in August. So if you haven't renewed, technically you're in the rears. However, we do normally carry September as a period where people are given to renew their dues. Please do that as soon as you can. Tom will be very pleased to have taken care of so we can move on with other things. Do the same as they have been in the past, $36 a year, $20 for student, educators, military, and first responders. Okay, I just said that. Oh. You can mail it in to the CAPMAC address or do it through the website. There's a number of ways you can pay your dues. So please do that so we can move forward. One thing that I just was this Apple event that's just been announced.
What?
It will be a week from today. We don't know what it's going to be. The title of the event is Time Flies. So the speculation is new phones, new Apple Watch, and perhaps other products. But it'll be at 10 a.m. 1 week from today. Hopefully, many of us will watch that meeting. I know I'm going to try.
John, real fast, this is Jeff. I think that's 10 Mountain, 10 Pacific, noon.
It is. Oops. Correct. It is 10 Pacific time. I should have included that there. So it'll be what, 8 a.m. our time? Noon our time. Sorry,
so is there a way, is there a link or is there a way we can watch it that you want to share with us? It just came
out today. I don't think they've introduced it yet.
Watch it at apple.com. It's going to be at 12 noon our time.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Apple TV, you can watch it too.
Be on Apple events on Apple TV.
So it should be interesting to see what they're going to be doing. If you are interested to learn more about Zoom, since we're using it so much, there is a free Take Control book that is available. It's not a lengthy book, but it gives you the essentials if you want to download it. You just have to register with Take Control and you can download the book. Also, the speaker from last month, Gary Rosenzweig, just released a video just a few days ago entitled 20 Tips for Using Zoom on Your Mac. So those are two things you might want to look at to learn more about Zoom. And the details, the active links and everything are in the email that I sent out on the 4th. So you don't have to copy this stuff down. We had a very good general meeting in August. The program was iCloud Tips by Gary. It, as well as several other of our meetings that we've had since we've been using Zoom, are available on our YouTube channel. So if you miss part of the meeting, miss a meeting, or want to suggest friends of yours or colleagues look at a meeting, they can go out to the YouTube channel and view our past meetings. It's a good way to share the information as well as to perhaps recruit some more people. Future meeting plans, we have Craig Gowans returning in October to talk about genealogy. Nancy is organizing in November, assuming that iOS 14 is released by then, to have a series of speakers talk about the features of iOS 14. Of course, December will be our annual holiday program by Bob Levitas. Our current tentative plan for January is to have some kind of a HomeKit or home automation speaker. As I mentioned, we're trying to do a review of key iOS 14 features. Pardon me. If you are interested in participating in that, contact Nancy so that she can get you involved in the planning process for that meeting and give you something or coordinate what you're going to speak on so there isn't an overlap. We are, of course, always looking for members to contribute, just like Umberto is going to be doing here shortly. So if you have a product review or a tech tip or a security tip to share, let the board know so that we can work you into the program. Our help desk is still working, though we aren't physically meeting face-to-face, but you can reach out to the help desk either by sending an email to president@capmac.org, and I will get that question forwarded to our help desk team, or you can enter a question on our Slack channel. So that brings us up to having our speakers. I tried to get through everything quickly so we could move forward. Before I do that and turn it over to Umberto, is there anything anyone wants to bring up? Hearing nothing, I'm going to turn this over to Umberto. So let me unshare my screen. If I can figure out how to do it. I see it. Robert, can you unshare, take the control of the screen?
I think so.
I think you just did.
Yeah.
So I can share my screen now, John?
Yes.
Should be able to.
Let's see here. Stop one. All right, great. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm just going to move this over. So in the chat, I've already provided you with some resources. This kind of, so this is my bullet page. I'll be talking about that in just a minute. But what I did was I created this Gorilla Visual Design collection that I put together. It's really based on what I'm about to show you. And when you go to this particular page here, this is the PDF of what I'm going to show y'all, with the exception of course, some of the manual things that I'm going to do. And then if you want to access the PDF and download it to your computer, you can click on this link right here and it'll take you right to it and you can download it because there is some useful information on there. So this is what I call guerrilla visual design because I am not really a professional visual designer. I have friends who are professional visual designers and they're awesome and they do great work and I could never meet up to what they do. But I love designing things. And I'm a photographer, filmmaker, musician. Those things I do extremely well. But I do love designing things. And this is just my hack. And so my goal is to provide you with some inspiration and tips so you can create graphics, banners, and characters in Apple's Keynote app. Because I just love the Keynote app. It's like my Photoshop and InDesign and Adobe all wrapped into one. And so I'm in this mode on purpose because I'm going to be doing some things. But you can create graphics for your social media. I have. One of the things is, as you know, most of social media, they have photo dimensions. And so like for Facebook, it's 820 by 312. So this is an image. This is one of my photographs that I took that I just cropped out with this box right here. And I did the same thing with my Twitter image. I cropped out this box here. And same thing with my LinkedIn. And so just to kind of show you how I did that is once I'm in Keynote, I pretty much go here to File. Once I have it, I go to Export To, and then I go to Images. And what I do is I export this whole slide as an image. So I'm going to go here, and I would tell it to export slide number 7. And you can export it as a JPEG or as a smaller file size, a PNG or TIF. I just do JPEGs. And then you hit Next, and then it'll tell you, ask you where you want to put it. I've already did it just to save time. So I'm going to go to Preview. And right now I'm in Preview. And so now I just want to crop this out. So now all I really need to do is just really go here and put a little rectangle here. I use those, like I said, I use that little box as a guide. And it's exactly 1584 by 396. And so I just try to get as close as I can to it. And then I go up here to Tools, and I click Crop. And now it's cropped out all that. It's cropped out the entire slide with the exception of my header. So now I can just save that. Now I can upload this to my social media and use it as my banner. So that's why I love this. I know some of you are on Instagram. When you put up Instagram, they're like 1080 by 1080. And so, as y'all can tell, I'm a big Star Wars fan. They have, May the 4th is always like a big Star Wars fan day. So I created this little graphic. I just got these spaceships off the internet and put them on here. But I provided you also with some dimensions for Instagram because there's different kind of dimensions that you can have. And like I said, all that is in that link that I just showed you. So some sample graphics that I created with Keynote, like completely with Keynote, was like I made this holiday social invitation using Keynote, and I just exported it and then put it up on our social media for E4Youth. One of my former students, he's getting his undergraduate now at University of Texas in film school, or not his undergraduate, his graduate degree. He's getting a graduate degree. And so he asked me to be a co-producer, so I needed to do a casting call for extras. So he sent me this picture, and I just ended up putting it on there and doing some little alterations here to create this one. And then I'm also in a band, and when we did a live showcase way back when we first got started, this was the idea. We took this photo, and then I just put text in here and information, and even put a link here that you can actually click on, and it takes you right to the event. Because we exported this as a PDF and put it up online. And this is my bulb page that I just showed you. And so this banner here, I created using Keynote. I took this picture in Washington, D.C., and this one I took out in a field in LaGrange with my guitar out there during the spring wildflower season. This was in Colorado, and somebody took this picture of me. So I just kind of put those up there to reflect my portfolio that I have. And then something else I did was I like designing little characters. And so I designed this little pig. I got a little hat from the internet, put it on the pig. And the reason I was doing that is because my sister started her own little business selling tamales. And so that's what she called it. And I even designed her business card on here and put it up here. And then I exported it and then sent it to her. And then she got her business cards printed out. Something else I did was I made my own Pikachu. The reason I did that is because I was presenting at iPad Palooza 2017, and their theme for that year was learning on the go, and it was based on this Pokemon game, the game that's on the iPhone. And so I used it. I created my own Pokemon, and I'll show you how I did that in a few minutes with that, just using Keynote and using some of the features that it has. So let's design a banner and characters with Keynote, because I know that's kind of what you're thinking. And so let's say that Quetzal wants to create this meditation podcast, and she wants to put it on Instagram so that she could promote her Instagram. So what I did is I just went to the internet here. I did a Google search for Quetzal, and I got this one, and I dragged and dropped it into here. And you may be wondering, okay, well, what good is that if it's got all these checkers on it? Well, that's why I say, I love Keynote, because it gives you the opportunity to actually edit that out. All you have to do is go to image here. You have to open your format box up here, then go to image. Once you're clicked on the image, and then click Instant Alpha. And when you click Instant Alpha, come over here, get on one of those little gray squares, and just move your mouse. And then you start getting rid of those little checkers. And then it's got some checkers right in here. So I'm going to get rid of these. And then I'm going to click off. And see, I got rid of everything. And now I can start designing my little banner. So I'm going to go up here to shapes. And the first thing I'm going to add is they give you a lot of different stuff here, which is really cool. This is a new thing that Apple started adding to Keynote. And I absolutely love it. So I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna grab this volcano, I'm gonna add it in here. And I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger because of course Quetzales live in Guatemala where there are volcanoes. They live in cloud forests. So I'm gonna go here and set this little volcano down here. And I'm also gonna go over here and change the color of it because you can change the color of it. I'm also gonna get rid of that drop shadow that's there because we don't need it. And I'm going to do a gradient fill. So I'm going to do 2 different colors here. And I had already pre-chosen the colors asparagus and mocha, so they're already in there. And then you can also rotate the way where it lands. So I'm going to make it rotate to the top right there. And so I have my volcano there. Now I'm going to add some mountains to it. So I'm going to go back in here and get me some little mountains like this one and do the same thing. Just kind of create. And I'm actually going to flip this after I change the gradient image and get rid of the drop shadow. And then I'm just going to go here to arrange and I'm going to flip it. So this side is over here. And I'm also going to change the way the gradient looks so that it doesn't, there we go. So it pops out against that volcano. And then I got to find a tree to put the Quetzal on. So I'm going to get me a little palm tree here. And I'm going to put this right here and going to make this really big. And I'm actually going to flip this. Well, first I'm going to do a color fill here and I'm going to do fern so that it's a little different color from the Quetzal. And I'm going to flip it so that I can set the Quetzal right there. And then what I'm going to do is go here to the Quetzal and I'm going to bring the Quetzal. I'm on a range here. I'm going to go and bring it to the front. So that's on the front of the palm. Now I'm going to add a few more palms. So I'm just going to hit Command D on my keyboard and it's going to duplicate the palm. And then I'm just going to make them a little smaller because I just want them in here just for a little more decor, just to kind of give the impression that we're in a cloud forest. and I'm going to flip this one the other way. Okay. And again, I'm going to bring the Quetzal back up to the front and then I'm going to add a little, then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this square. So I put this square here because that's the image size, 1080 by 1080 for Instagram. What I'm going to do with that is I'm actually going to fill it in with blue. So I'm going to go here and fill it in with this color blue. I think that's the one I used, was it? I'll go with this one. And then I'm going to put in a sun in here. And so you can see it start taking shape.
Yeah, lots of sun.
Yeah, so now I'm going to go here and change the color sun to yellow, of course. And make it a little bit bigger. And then I got to take this and send it to the back again so that we can see everything, including that. And so I would also go here and do the snow cap, but it takes a lot more time. And that's pretty easy. You just pretty much get another shape. And I was doing like the hexagon, this one, and then just flipping it around and putting it there and coloring it white so that that comes out white, and then put it behind it. But just for time's sake, because I know we don't have a lot of other time, it looks like this. So I have one there. So this is what it ends up looking like. So like I said, it's so cool. It's so easy to do. And then all you have to do is export it and then just make sure that you're, when you crop it using these lines. So the other thing I want to show you is just how to design a character. So characters are really fun and really easy. I'm just going to start with a circle here. And the first thing I'm going to do is constrain the proportions. And I'm going to make it bigger here by clicking on here and putting, let's see, 600. Yeah, it's a little big. I'm going to go with 500. And I'm also going to change the style of it and just do a basic color fill here. And we'll do like a, I don't know. We'll do like that, like an ocean color, and then get rid of this drop shadow. And so I'm just going to create a little character here. I'm going to duplicate the circle. I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to make these really quickly. I'm just going to make them 100. And first I'm going to do a color fill of black. And then I'm just going to duplicate it again using my keyboard, Command D. And then I'm going to go here and put some eyes on them. And I'm also going to take away the constraint proportions because I'm going to make his eyes kind of a little like this. But I'm going to purposely like, whoops, I didn't and so I'm purposely kind of doing that so that his eyes aren't really proportionate, because our eyes aren't really proportionate. And then I'm going to take that one and I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to put it here, and that's going to be his nose. But I'm going to turn his nose sideways, 90 degrees. Let me see, because you can do that on here. And then I'm going to go here and grab another shape and do this one here, which is the connection line. And I'm going to take this connection line. First, I'm going to bring it over here so I can work on it. So I'm going to take it and do something like this, change the shape of it a little bit. And then I'm going to go here to style. And first I'm going to change the color of it to red for the lips. And then I'm also going to change the width of it a bit. And then the other cool thing is you can change the line. So I'm going to make it something, let's see what this looks like. Yeah, so we got something like that now. And that looks pretty cool. We can make it a little bigger so it's more pronounced. And then I'm going to go over here to shapes. I'm going to type in hat. And I'm going to give this gentleman a hat. And I'm going to do a color fill. I'm just going to do black and get rid of the drop shadow. Expand it. And then I'm also going to change the direction. I'm going to tilt it a little bit by messing with the angle here. So I'm going to angle it about 9 degrees. Okay. And then the way you're able to take this and actually change the size of it if you want something smaller is just you highlight all of it like this, and then go here to arrange and group it together. And now that you grouped it together, it's one image. So now you can just move it around. You can resize it and it'll be proportionate, you know, and then you can export it as well, which is what I did with the Pikachu. So that's kind of how you create these characters. And like I said, these are in there. These are links to there. I put them in the chat as well. And this is my social media if you want to take a look at some of those images that I showed you earlier. And there's my email if you want to reach out to me for any help. I'll be more than happy to help. So I'll take any questions.
Yeah.
Umberto, that was very good.
Yeah,
Thanks.
didn't know you could do this in this program.
Yeah, it's so fun. I love Keynote. Like it's
I've
my
never even heard you
go-to.
could do this in Keynote.
I've used similar function to realize all the capabilities you demonstrated tonight. It is a versatile program to.
It is very.
Anyone have any
good.
questions for Umberto?
No, that's pretty impressive.
Okay, then I'm going to introduce Fozzie, who's going to talk about 5G. I'm not going to bring up another hassle switching back and forth. I've known Fozzie for 10 or 15 years. He and I have worked together in IEEE here in Central Texas for a number of years. So I'm aware of what he's done. And if you look at the bio that was included in the newsletter and the announcement for the meeting, you can see it has a substantial background in 5G. I saw him do a presentation on 5G and reached out to him to see if he would be willing to talk to Cat and educate us about 5G. So with that, I want to turn it on over to Fozzie and let him drive the show.
Okay.
Thank you very much, John. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. And what an art. It's very hard to follow. That's work by Humberto, but really a great talent. So I wonder if you are able to see. Are you able to see the slides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let me put it in now.
Okay.
How about now? All right.
Yeah.
Yes, very good.
Excellent. So anyhow, I really thanks the opportunity to be with you and also share some of the experience, but also the knowledge I have with regard to area of wireless and technology as well as 5G. And I'll try to make it as simple, but hopefully as interesting, but also try to introduce some terminology that could be of help. But I'm not going deeper into any kind of great technical details. Feel free if you want to stop me at any time, but certainly we'll have ample time at the end of the presentation. So first of all, I welcome you all also from being also in Austin with John. I'm also chairing a few chapters here in Austin under IEEE Central Texas. One of them is, of course, the Communications Society, which you see here. And we're able to proudly also indicate that we got a couple of awards back in 2015 and 2017, being rewarded for outstanding achievement, both at the North America side as well as worldwide. We're also chairing the Computer Society chapter, Signal Processing, as well as Engineering Biomedical. So all of these things, and lately we have added the consumer electronics. So that add a nice portfolio in terms of capabilities that could be enriching and building more of a smart systems and SoC chip for those who are involved in the semiconductor side. I think as we discussed with John and was circulated, I'll try to answer a few high-level questions regarding 5G, because that's really the best way of getting to know a little bit more focused knowledge about certain areas. And specifically wanted to understand why have 5G being introduced and how different it is from the previous generations. So that's really one key area I'll try to answer. And what is driving 5G and who's driving it, and both in US and worldwide, and what's the kind of overall roadmap for that. And if this is being deployed, what type of application we expect to get from 5G and the services. So we want to touch on some of the use cases that initially will be deployed, but over time, what will be the gradual enablement of application and services over the coming years. And then, of course, the key questions, is 5G end of it, of the cellular type of roadmap, or there's something we expect that will take place? So I wanted to understand more about the rollout of the cellular network. And I added a couple of items to be relevant to the time we're living in. I mean, we're under still the pandemic, trying hard to, as you see, various labs and research working on vaccine and therapeutics and so on to combat the virus. How does it impact the 5G in specifically and in general? We know it's impacting and paralyzing a lot of activities worldwide. And then one question was, I was asked to also address, and is 5G, there's a lot of rumors, never stop, about 5G and health, especially health hazards. Are there some indications that point out that 5G is really dangerous on our health? So these are kind of questions, and any other questions we should be able to respond at the end. But these are at least some questions. I did a bit of research, and hopefully you would see also some fresh material. So let's start with the, first of all, what's the differentiating 5G from others? And so to step back and put it in the right context, we all witnessed all these types of revolutions, from Industrial Revolution back 1770 into the Industrial Revolution 2 in the 1870, and to the third revolutions with the PC and automation. That's in 1970. And now we're witnessing the fourth industrial revolutions, encompassing the glue here is 5G, but as you start hearing, artificial intelligence is a big player, cloud computing, robotics, and so on. So these are kind of stages of industrial revolution that we're witnessing. So we are at this particular era where we could see various types of deployment that will be empowered. The essence here is that they will all be empowered by 5G technology. The other way to look at it, specifically from a generation perspective, why it is the fifth, because it is preceded by 4 other generations. And we draw the map here, or timeline, for each of the 4 generations preceded the 5G. You got the first generation back in the 1981 to roughly 1999, and then followed by second generation, third generation, fourth generation. In general, there are about 13 years or so a life cycle for each generation. But each generation end up with some specific emphasis and characteristics. For example, started with 0, was really more of the voice only for fax and modem. But the first generation really started kind of eavesdropping and the second generation is the real one with the voice quality and SMS, and we kind of see here the cost per gigabit or gigabyte here is really $1,000. As you could see, that cost is going down to about $1 with 5G. You will see introduction of web, so 3G enabled the web, and 4G enabled IMS with YouTube and WhatsApp and notification, etc. 5G here is focusing a lot in terms of IoT and low latency. So it just give you a little bit of a high level point in terms of these generations, that there are sequence and there are some deliverables or focus on each generation. If we dive a
Just
little—
for those that don't know, when he says IoT, he's talking Internet of Things.
Thank you. I'll make sure I'll be spelling these things as we go forward. Here's another thing, maybe you have come across it or maybe not, really providing a bit of more high level timeline for and all the generations. So again, to recap, we'll talk about first generation, basically enabling the voice, and the second generation, adding the voice with some data and digital transmission, and the third generation really have voice with some immediate text, internet, and different protocol, as you could see here. And then the fourth generation is really more of a high level in terms of wireless network. It's IP-based, internet protocol-based type, with having things like voice over IP instead of having voice over traditional type of line. And you have a true mobile type of broadband and heterogeneous type of overall network. This is really also improve in terms of speed. You may have heard with the 2.5 kilobit per seconds, with the first generation up to 64 kilobit per second back in 1991. And now it went to in the early 2000s into 2 megabit per second. And then the fourth generation, which we are going through now with different sub-generations, like now in 4G LTE long-term evolutions, it's really more moving towards 100 megabit per second. So what would 5G deliver, both in terms of speed as well as what's hinted up in the top? Does it really impact any application? All of these things we notice, it's all dealing with speeds and protocols and networking and certain level of level of latency and more of a concurrent type of connectivities and so on. So what really different with 5G? So that's really what try to unfold in two aspects. Different than, well, similar to previous generations, it continued to improve on the technical capabilities. So for example, and here I'm trying to compare 5G on one hand and LTE, 4G LTE on the other hand. So today we are going, for example, against, let's say, 4 major technical performance capabilities. One of them dealing with the delay, which is latency. So today we're witnessing a delay of about 40 milliseconds. We anticipate that with 5G, that will go down to about 1 milliseconds. Hey, that will be excellent really for various type of mission critical type of applications. Oops. So that's one area in terms of latency. The other thing in terms of speed, so we did witness 100 megabit per second that we're witnessing with LTE. What do you think the number would be with the 5G? Well, it's anticipated to go to 10 gigabit per second. So that's somewhere about 100 times over what currently the best 4G LTE is offering. And that's really in terms of speed and throughput. but also in terms of connections, and you measure connection in terms of how many connections you can have per kilometer square. So with LTE, we could have about 10,000 connections. But look what with the 5G, you could have more of a dense, up to 1 million connection per kilometer. So that's a huge. And finally, in terms of you walk, of course, you can guarantee you have the speed, you have the transmission, and the, I would say, the sessions still functioning. If you go with a high, maybe a slow, maybe a bike or a slow train, for example, that it can go all the way up to, actually will be faster now, 350 kilometer per hour. And you still maintain kind of service on the road. But with 5G, we'll be able to sustain up to 500 kilometer per hour. So across various areas, you see 5G is a leapfrog in terms of performance, technical capabilities across, both all in terms of speed, density, and latency. And these are important ingredients that is required in different types of application. Some applications are very sensitive to latency. Some are like an IoT, very also sensitive to density and speed and so on, and as we will witness. So number one thing different than previous generation is that leapfrog in terms of technical performance. But the biggest thing that's really 5G is different than any other generation from the specification on how it is written, and took so many years to have that written by 3GPP, and also ITU was working on it and so on, but primarily 3GPP is the put all along with other Harmony with other consortium. They saw the vision that 5G could take a different also approach, in a sense that it could enable and support applications. So today our really heart was really to ensure that where we move to smart mobile devices and we look at the speed of execution, speed of download, speed of running, speed of streaming with no hiccup or no jittering pictures and so on, into now applications. If you are having sensors in the home and you want to manage them in terms of IoT, in terms of transforming your home into a smart type of environment with energy and security and many other aspects, in terms of the overall grid energy management, all the way from the grid down to the appliances, as well as in terms of transportations and mobility, and whether it is public transportation vehicles or public safety, and in terms of first responder type vehicles, or other type of transportation, or the whole notion. We started with gaming, and we know how slow it could be, but now you're talking about online gaming with enriched with virtual reality, augmented reality, and so on. All of these things, along with the all medical sensors, these are all concrete major applications. And 5G saw the vision that they could empower all of these things. So therefore, they could translate also the capabilities that we just talked about earlier into enablement for these applications. So as you could see here, a whole, in terms of energy management across, whether turbine, whether solar, or whether it is nuclear or other means, smart homes, the vision itself, combating fires, for example, satellite transmissions, mobility, and wearables. So you will have a lot of wearables now that can give you a lot of information and connect to the environment around you, and generating more what's called moving towards, if you bit by bit make the environment around you intelligence, then you are moving to smarter community and smarter society, smarter city and smarter country, and so on. So that's really the vision, that for 5G it will be able to support all of that. And that's why it is way different than any other previous generation. The other things for those maybe have involved in some design or characteristic and criteria. And those who were all have our mobile devices, laptop, iPad, laptop, as well as smartphone, iPhone. And one of the major issue really is the battery. And that battery also is impacting so many things like transformer on the street lamps or street poles, I should say, have a battery that maybe need to be changed. The batteries that we have in our devices. So the aim is that so far in our iPhone, what it lasts about sometimes between 48 hours to maybe a maximum 4 or 5 days. The specification of 5G is wanted to bring that, especially for massive IoT. And this is really, I'm talking about the those sensors that would be on a transformer or poles and so on. They should be lasting about 10 years. So that's a major breakthrough. The overall reliability, when we talk about 5 nines and all that, so wanted to make sure that whatever being delivered with 5G is giving a high, massive type of reliability. We did witness the speed, so we're also going with maybe 6G and others to terabit per second, all the way from 10 gigabit per second to terabit per second. There's no limit at this point. And then the overall massive control in terms of latency. Hey, if we can take an action and that action executed immediately. I don't want to take minutes. I don't want to take 50 seconds. Some critical applications or actions and control actions require fractions of milliseconds. So therefore, we wanted to move down from 40, 50 milliseconds down to 1 to 10 milliseconds. So that will be quite helpful, especially in the control type of application. So these are kind of key characteristics that differentiate 5G from all the previous. So by contrast, you'll be able to see a little bit more now about 5G. And now we can look at what's really now driving 5G. So this type of chart really plotting the latency on one hand on the vertical axis against bandwidth or speed on the horizontal axis. So as I said, 4G right now running about 50 milliseconds, 40 to 50 milliseconds, which is really around here. And we want to move it up to 1 milliseconds. And the same thing in terms of speed, we're moving from about 10 megabit per second and want to move it to 1 gigabit per second. So that you see 4G and various applications that we are witnessing today with video streaming, personal cloud, monitoring of sensors, and so on. These are good in terms of lower speed to higher speed, and as well as in terms of medium type of low latency, but not critically low latency. But look at 5G, what it will open, both at the latency side as well as at the speed side. So at the latency side, now it opened up the door for real-time gaming, autonomous vehicle, because they have now hundreds and thousands sometimes of sensors in order to ensure that every aspect in terms of autonomous driving is really being monitored and controlled. And as you move to the, and of course, disaster alert comes on the border, but as you move to the right in terms of speed, hey, we need the speed for a lot of things. Virtual reality does not work really nice with a low speed. It will be so slow and will not give that same effect or impact as that tactical type of internet that cover all types of aspects of beside the internet itself is also something that we could look for in the future, like gestures and smell and things like that. Augmented reality is now also at the top of the line in terms of requiring a high speed. So these 5G, as you could see here, 5G is enabling a lot of capabilities in order to give you a better, lower latency as well as much higher speed. If we now will trying to look at it, identify some of these applications and maybe just to get a little bit of understanding. So I identified 3 areas. One, we just talk about video being definitely enabled, video streaming. And we see that it is, will be exploding, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, as well as the whole notion of video and I would say enhanced mobile type of broadband. There's a lot of associated capabilities that we could address, but one of the lead application would be video. The other one in terms of lead application is the massive IoT connectivity, the Internet of Things, that we could see it penetrating in every vertical market, metering, factories, homes, in campus, you name it. So we see here billions and billions of devices. We have right now, I think about somewhere around maybe 14 to 19 billion devices being IoT connected to the internet. And the other one is, of course, is the whole notion in terms of critical application and machine-to-machine type of communications, like in data acquisitions, in drone, in robotic, autonomous vehicles and so on. There's a whole class of applications. So what I have been introducing here at a very high level, there could be a group of application that's empowered by 5G, another group of application empowered by 5G, and another group of applications. And let's see how these things really reside in their own respective positioning. But before doing that, I try to exemplify on these ones that we have just described. So I did mention video has really transitioned a lot in terms of technology from standard high definition to from standard and high definition to 4K, 8K, now to 360 virtual reality. So that's really growing fast to the point that IP traffic by 2022, we would see 82% of the traffic is really video based. That tells you right away that the video will play a major role in terms of traffic generations and services associated that will be based on video. And it is measured in terms of also exabyte, which is what I think 19 zeros or something like that. I forgot now, but so many zeros, let's put it that way. So 217, the market was talking about video traffic of 56 exabyte, and then looking at 2022 to 240 exabyte. So tremendous amount of data that's being generated by video traffic. And as you could see, it's in video, streaming video, video conferencing, virtual reality, on-demand videos, and so on. The other one that mentioned earlier, and John mentioned it, is the Internet of Things. So this is all around us, and your thermostat, if it is smart, you'll be able to manage it and control it from your, let's say, iPhone or other type of device. So that's really, in a simple terminology, if you turn a passive object, which could be a thermostat, into an active object, that means you could remotely access it, then becomes an IoT type of device in a very, very high level root form, but just to be able to understand it. So the thermostat, you can walk to the thermostat and adjust the temperature to the desired, to what is desired. But if you could manage that remotely as in a simple fashion, you could also adjust that. Not only that, but IoT just then opened the door that you can program the thermostat, you can activate it, you can remotely make adjustments and variety of things, just for one sensors. Then you can have multiple sensors, for example, in the home, can control the fan, the drapes if you want to, the garage openers, air conditioning, you name it. So many things just in the home itself. So that market for IoT is, as you could see here, is growing from 110 billion type of devices in 2017. Today, we're looking at 250 almost billion devices. Sorry, there, apologize. Talking from a size of the market in terms of trillion. 212 billion dollars, and you're getting to $250 billion. And then if you go by 2025, that will becomes 1.5 trillion dollars. Again, as I mentioned, I think 2020, these $250 billion really represent something about maybe 19 billion type of devices connected to the network. So you see, all the point here is that this IoT market is growing exponentially. I mentioned the mobility and autonomous vehicle. So you could see here, I mean, you could connect, you are in the car and you could have awareness of what's around you, of other cars, of the street light, of the traffic light, of objects, of the pedestrians, at intersections, and so on. So you have multitude of sensors that will be really helping you to communicate with other vehicle, communicate with the objects, as I said, as a traffic light, for example, or communicate with overall infrastructure for warning and things like that. So that's also an area that we see a great growth. Each one will have respective time. I mean, they all have initiatives and they all have going through trials and things like that. But we'll see through the roadmap, we'll see what we see, what's realistically will come first. But from a terminology perspective, when you see V2V, it's really vehicle to vehicle communications through that red line, or vehicle to pedestrian, V2P, or infrastructure to vehicle, as you could see here, the traffic light connecting to a vehicle, and so on. So that's just from a terminology perspective. In the healthcare, we see also distinction between 4G and 5G, in a sense that 5G will bring you, as you may have heard, I mean, when can we have a remote arm surgery, for example, which require a higher level of reliability, but also much lower latency. The lowest here at minimum should be 5 milliseconds. Ideally, it should be like 1 milliseconds. High level of securities and faster upload and download, and connectivity with the hospitals, and seamless connection to wireline and wireless. But we see that it is enabling and empowering things like telehealth, telesurgery, telemedicine, diagnostics, connecting various agencies, health providers, and so on, with the pharmacy and all together. So that's where the connectivity at a higher speed, it would be required, transfer of electronic records, x-rays, and things like that. You don't want to run an x-ray transmission that takes hours, but you want it to run much faster. So that's why you need a higher speed and lower latency. So healthcare will undergo vast evolutions, but we already start witnessing with the pandemic that visit to doctors has been almost stopped, but you could have a televisit or telemedicine, basically prescribing drugs over the phone, having conversation with the nurse or with the doctor, and maybe just simplified remote type of diagnostics and an emergency type of situation, and depending on the availability and admissions, be able to go to the nearest hospitals and maybe have a surgery kind of being performed. So we're witnessing that the pandemic essentially is also accelerating some means of communications in the medical arena. Not sure what this navigation happened here. Oh. Oh, here we go. Just want to make sure we're at the right track. So some of the other empowering entities, I mean, and I can speak, let's say, from a US perspective. I mean, the major providers here are AT&T, Sprint, and now joining with T-Mobile. So they're officially are merged, as well as Verizon. I think Sprint and T-Mobile are going very aggressively into the market, as well as in penetration. But we see that they are essentially supporting various stuff. Believe it or not, there are some 5G type of devices, but they are also, they're trying to introduce the infrastructure in US. So by contrast, AT&T is covering so far about 395 market across the country. I think Verizon is doing about 35 markets, and Sprint Mobile, T-Mobile is really doing it across. They're still working on complementing each other. They have two separate networks, so they're still working on the merging, but we'll understand a little bit more in terms of their focus in a few slides from now. And they're offering different types of data plan. But in terms of 5G phones, 5G, well, phones, yeah, smartphones that they are offering, AT&T now is selling Samsung Galaxy. There are 3 flavors of Samsung that they are all selling, plus LG, a few also models of that. In fact, all of them are supporting the Samsung as well as LG. In fact, these are the mainly 2 ones that are really supporting 5G. I think Motorola is listed here, but it is really more of 4G side of it. So today in the market, from 5G devices perspective, there's only Samsung and LG. Maybe the announcement that's coming on the 15th, hopefully they could talk about Apple or iPhone, maybe 12 or something like that, that could be supporting 5G. I don't know, but everybody's watching and hoping that Apple will enter into the 5G soon. So let's run quickly into in terms of use cases, what we could see coming earlier. So all the classification or category of applications that I talk about when I talk about video, when I talk about IoT connectivities, when I talk about self-driving autonomous vehicle, they come all under within 3 categories. One is called enhanced mobile broadband, and abbreviation is EMB, or sometimes EMBB. And the second one is massive machine type communications. The heart of that all is the sensors, IoT. And the third one is called ultra reliable and low latency communications. So by the description of the word, it's really focusing more on mission critical and real time that require very, very low latency and extremely high reliable network. So this is really symbolized in terms of a variety of category of applications, such as self-driving car, mission critical, industry automation, augmented reality, all the way to the video that I gave you one example before. In terms of massive machine type, you heard of the word of smart city. So that's really becoming part of the future as you are building sensors in various areas in the house, in the community, in the garage, in the factory, in the office, etc., in the buildings, and the infrastructure. You're really building up a smarter, as I said, community and a smarter city. Voice also becoming the heart of that. So there's a voice commands now that you can operate all your sensors Smart home buildings is another level that's moving towards the personal entities or like homes, and then of course the higher speed mobile type of devices. So that this is really a framework. That is 3GPP has something similar. In fact, expand these things to about 70 use cases. ITU just simply put a general framework so that people could understand what are we talking about. So this, the tip of the triangle is really captured in these images, which I did show it previously. One is the enhanced mobile broadband, the mission critical side, as well as the massive IoT. So I'll add a little bit more. So if we look at the mobile devices, I did mirrors more specifically in terms of Galaxy type, the Galaxy 20. It has 3 types, the standard S20 for 1,000, S20 Plus for 1,200, S20 Ultra for 1,400. The LG has V60, 10Q 5G. They didn't really give price in at least on the website, but the overall aim is as manufacturers striving to deliver 5G enabled type of devices, they're trying to target pricing to go below 500. So that's really the target. Don't expect anything will be today because it is the early introduction of devices, the prices is quite high. So mobile devices is the first thing you start seeing instance, and you already saw a few models of devices in the market. The second one for early introduction, which means this year and next year, is what's called fixed wireless. Wow. Apologize for the losing control here. The fixed wireless is really where you come in the last mile, you really turning all these things, the connection that you have and through Wi-Fi and so on, into something of a higher speed. That could be essentially giving you the speed of fiber optics, but this is really the area that really that's stable and that will be directly applicable for applying the Wi-Fi 5 as well as Wi-Fi 6, which is currently a higher speed type of connections. So it's offering, by introducing that higher speed, it's offering also higher speed, higher services or applications that really require low latency, such as in the cloud computing area with, and you have really 2 types of cloud here at this point, since we're in the world of cloud. You get a low level cloud, which is really more in real time type of, sometimes they call it fog cloud, or higher level cloud, which will be in the data center itself, and this have larger latency. It could be half a second, for example, latency. So the point here is really fixed wireless is trying to explore how we could introduce some services as close as possible to the customer premise. But on the other hand, we see that competition between Wi-Fi, especially Wi-Fi 6 and 5G. So over time, 5G is also coming in with the hope, maybe with a lower cost, but offering something similar in terms of services. And this is being supported by multiple companies, and especially in the focusing in the arena of gaming and others. And this is a battle that probably will witness whether there will be convergence between Wi-Fi and 5G. Some indications saying that maybe by 2036 we could see such convergence. In the meantime, for greenfield application, meaning that if you're starting fresh and new, you could pick up anyone you wish, either Wi-Fi or 5G. It's really the transitions, how you go from one to the other, by understanding who is offering what guarantee of services and at what performance. So now we turn back and talk about the carriers. So for US perspective, there are also 3 levels of spectrum. One is the low and mid band, and the third one is a high band. So the high band here will be more in the what's called millimeter wave deployment. So it's really looking at the dense area, but at a much higher speed. Low and mid band is very similar to where we are today, with a lower type of frequency. So AT&T and Verizon were really initially will focus on the low band, but they will move quickly into the high band and introducing the millimeter wave. And T-Mobile and Sprint will be really driving the low band spectrum for coverage. So that's give you a little bit of distinction in terms of deployment and what the focus is of AT&T versus Verizon versus T-Mobile and Sprint. This is an interesting app or rollout I came across. I should be really pushing quickly to wrap up, but it just give you, since you have the slides, you will see the distinction and positioning of the 5G with the millimeter wave versus the sub-6, which is the low band, at different places in the world. So as you could see, North America is focusing a lot on the moving forward also with the millimeter wave. And Europe is really focusing a lot initially on the low band, and then in some cases they are moving with millimeter wave, and similarly for other countries. This is also, if you wanted to know, so who is deploying what and where and all that. So this is a map by Mapbox, I guess, an OpenStreetMap, and I give you the URL on the bottom. It's giving you what there are about 15,000 connections or deployment sites. That is 5G today. And some are limited availability, meaning they are present, but devices are limited to select customers. And the third category, the pink one, is more in terms of currently it's just being under testing, but not yet accessible by customers. So you could see the distributions, and you could see the density in terms of cities that have been adopting 5G. You could see a lot, let's say in US, quite a bit of also presence in Europe, a little interestingly presence also Middle East, and reasonably well in terms of Asia. I did zoom into a few areas. For example, I said I want to check Texas state. So you can zoom in and you can get major cities. You see Austin 22 sites that's really have 5G compared to Dallas higher, and Houston also quite higher. If I go one further, just Austin itself, who has deployment, and we could see there are 3 sites, or one of them and enabled by T-Mobile, AT&T, and as well as T-Mobile, and they give you the location. So this map is really, you could spend hours and days analyzing, and it is updated real time, the same as ones that's really doing the pandemic with coronavirus. You have a similar map that give you areas that's infected cases, as well as fatality and so on. So let's move quickly to next stage, which is really moving 7 years. And this is really, it's following the standards. So today we finish standard 15. We're about completing standard 16 this year, and then moving to standard 21. Standard 17. Standard 17 will focus a lot on mission critical and mobility. Standard 16 will do a lot of areas in terms of manufacturing and smart cities. And then now this is the area for CPE and PC and devices and so on. So it'll give you a bit of perspective in terms of deployment. Certainly we see 5G over the years will activate and empower applications in many sectors, whether industry or healthcare, media, retail, transportation, and others. There is just an example of, in terms of, you can get concrete use cases under each of these categories that really empowered initially with IoT, but now 5G is giving it the technical performance that is required. And the same with mobility. We touched on that earlier, but it just gives you a little bit. The biggest challenge really, and why it will take a little bit of time to provide a complete safety, is this whole section of the intersection. It's the biggest challenge to be able to kind of wonder how many images are captured every seconds. I think about 4,000 at least for every second for every type of intersections. There are some statistics on that, but it's a lot of work, and therefore analyzing that and adding to it things like artificial intelligence to get you some insights so that preventing any kind of fatality that we witness through some trials. So the vision then is really moving from a current network into an evolved type of network, adding all these types of new brand of applications, whether it is dealing with energy or transportations or medical care, and really start building such a new type of environment and network connected with open source and open innovations that both customers and partners chip in. That essentially will help us to transform that type of environment into a smarter cities and smarter services, improving essentially at the end of the day, what are we looking for is improving quality of life, improving also business efficiency, and building more of an eco type of systems. In the terms of long term, 4G will not disappear. As you could see here, 4G is really continue reaching a plateau, and maybe by 2022, and slowly start declining. In the meantime, 5G will start picking up slowly. So, but not in a fast moving lane, but rather, more of a slower pace. So that tells you, let's say by 2025, half of this decade will still live with initial deployment of 5G till the end of the decade. If you go beyond that, let's say to, this also give you a little bit of a deeper look in terms of applications, where we are today in terms of doing a lot of effort, as you could, from fixed wireless to smart home to smart factory, AR, VR, autonomous vehicle, real time. So that'll give you a little bit of realistic sequence and empowered by the technical capability that's needed for these types of applications, and moving from high density to urban to selective to rural area in the second half of this decade. The last two slides is really COVID-19. We see certainly it's really put a disruption in everything we do. Minimize face-to-face interactions or in-person types of meeting. We're all meeting virtually now. And also minimizing that store shopping and all that. It's slowly opening up with a lot of criteria of distance learning and mask and so on. And appointments and keeping social distancing. And then moving gradually in terms of looking at new demands and how we could meet expectations. But essentially, it also impacted the specifications, and there was a slow in terms of standards activities, and hopefully it will pick up. But in turn, it accelerated some services on some applications. On the other hand, it delays some other applications. So the overall, the net is really, I would say, we anticipate within perhaps the new norm, which really will be a better way than the way we're living, much more innovative approach, and supported, I would call it, with AI and machine learning and deep learning, will be able to be in a much better position. Well, the last point I wanted to touch on is really, is 5G hazardous to the health? And you could read all types of arguments back and forth. The bottom line, essentially, as of this moment, no. Where it could be possibility is really when you apply millimeter wave, which is the high band. And that high band really is right now we're running between around 30 kilohertz to 5 gigahertz. But in the 5G is really focusing a lot on the 30 gigahertz and beyond. And this is really classified as non-ionizing, meaning that is not harmful to the high frequency is not harmful to the body itself. The ionizing is really when you start going in the arena of X-rays and radioactive sources, nuclear sources, and the sunlight. This is where you really will be quite a bit of concern. So up to this moment, and for the next couple of years, there is no doubt that there is no impact whatsoever that 5G would have. When they introduce the millimeter wave, it's still classified as non-ionizing, but to give assurance to the public and to the and those who are the service providers as well as equipment vendors, there will be some more studies done on that in the coming years, just to assure the public that in this level also with millimeter wave, it will still remain as ionizing, non-ionizing. So what are we taking away? We see certainly just through these slides that there's a commercial deployment has begun already for 5G, starting with mobile services, moving with the along with fixed wireless, moving into various types of applications as we are going to witness over the coming years. And I think there was one slide I missed. This will continue until the end of the decade, which is by 2030. And work for 6G has already started actually in terms of specifications, with the promise that it will start with in the 2030 for another 10 years or so as a new cycle. And the 6G, just in one word, it will have everything in terms of integrating human, integrating satellite, integrating gestures, integrating everything you could think of, the space programs or a different level of flying objects on the space at multiple levels. That also will be integrated in 6G. So anyhow, that just give you hopefully a quick view in terms of where we are and what we anticipate to see from 5G. If you have, also I'll be happy to, if you send me any questions, I'll be happy to respond to you. I used a few sources that I listed here just for your reference. And finally, I also put a lot of this information in much easier to understand terminology covering all these markets in a book I co-authored with Kwaku about the collaborative Internet of Things. It's really helping to give you a picture and view what's coming in the 2020 and what's coming in the 2030 across these types of market. So with that, I thank you for your patience, your attention. Sorry I took a lot of your time, but hopefully there could be a few questions I'll be able to respond to. Back to you, John.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you know, this may be a far out question, but do you know if the implementation of 5G and 6G is going to have any kind of an impact on people with visual or hearing disabilities? Is there any connection between making things easier for folks with those disabilities?
No, no. That's the, as you witness it today, has 4G impacted anyone at this point? And 5G, you could think of it for the next several years. It's exactly like 4G, except higher speed and more empowering capability to be able to exercise much faster control. In fact, I would say it will help and augment and advance the technology and innovations in various areas, whether visual impaired or in terms of handicap, or many things that will be a lot of new devices and a lot of with the sensors capability and sensitivity and accuracy and control that's built into it will really help to transform to make our life much easier. In fact, IoT itself will transform from just monitoring the environment that you are in and the temperature and the health type of conditions, by not only treating the symptoms, which is what we're witnessing today, by really identifying the root cause of the problem and be able to address it at the root cause level, which really I don't think we're doing that today medically. But with IoT, you will have much greater level of accuracy and precision. And that's why you hear a lot about IoT used, let's say, in farming, and they call that precision farming, because they analyze, let's say, every square foot of the earth in terms of everything nutrient that it has and what it requires to flourish, and also deposit the right fertilizer in that particular area. And these are all kind of automated today. And this is really in an agriculture area. Imagine what will take place in the health area, which in my opinion has been neglected and deprived from benefiting from the technology for ages. So I think it's about time to witness some innovation and leapfrogging improvement in the healthcare.
Well, thanks. That's encouraging.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I've noticed a lot of the trials are focused on link speeds, but a lot of the new applications require new architectural constructs, which are defined. Some of them are defined actually in 4G, some in 5G. Is anybody testing some of these new architectural constructs in terms of being able to dynamically allocate resources, indicate you need low latency, indicate you might need a level of reliability above what would the normal application require?
Yes, Walter, I think this is a great question. And they go through a discipline and systematic approach. So even with 5G, if you look at before even it became commercially deployed in a limited fashion this year, although there's a huge hype that 5G is here, but anyhow, it's still in a very limited scope. But even to go to that level, it requires every participation from everyone, from all the equipment, from the semiconductor to the equipment manufacturing, like Nokia and Siemens and all of that, compiling these systems and tested along with the service provider like AT&T and so on, and have a testing type of environment, having end-to-end, looking at different aspects. And these are called technical trials. So these technical trials really nothing more than examining the interworking and technical capabilities. Now, the next level is really moving that to initial commercial trial, and that commercial trial introducing, as We're just saying some services and see how these things are interworking, what type of network is required. Especially, there are techniques called network slicing, for example. You slice the network to deliver specific type of service. For example, video, high speed, high definition video may require one slice to meet all the requirements of high speed video versus the occasional, let's say, people that are connecting with each other casually that do have no particular urgency to have higher speed or low latency and so on. So they could have main slice of the network. And that's a major difference and distinction from 4G to 5G. You are segmenting now your network into slices that you can develop to meet the specific services. And versus 4G, everything lumped into one network. Now we can have multiple virtual networks, but mapped into the physical environment, and have individual security for each network slice, and looking at all the resources required for that type of services and stage them with things like, maybe you heard of it, SDN and NFV, like software defined network, and NFV, which is network virtualizations that help to virtualize your network so that you could configure it dynamically for any given type of application services. So it's like a new world, but it's really simplifying mainly the configuration and the automation of the network, respecting security, respecting performance, and quality of service guarantees and reliability.
All right, thank you.
So Fawzi, looking at this from the typical user point of view, if we are, one of us was looking at buying a new phone, how important is it for the next 2 to 3 years of purchasing a 5G capable phone versus a 4G capable phone?
Initially, if you are addict to, I don't know, gaming or you love virtual reality, augmented reality, and that's your main focus, I think these devices could be of greater help, and that you could constrain your selections to things like what NVIDIA is doing with the graphical processing and so on being embedded into the mobile type of devices. But other than that, in terms of normal operations, even streaming is still, I mean, with iPhone, I have iPhone 10, and I still have very decent streaming video compared to years ago. I mean, years ago so I don't feel I need one unless I'm downloading, let's say 4K, 8K type of images, which only a few companies are producing that content in that high type of resolutions. And then you have you have providers that transmitting that high content, and then you could benefit from that from your mobile devices. So you have to look at really the supply chain itself from beginning to end. Is it worth it? What's the use of having such capability on your mobile device? And only 2 movies, let's say, are available in 4K, 8K that you could really able to run. It's like the days when we had VHS and beta and so on. They could only run for a certain type of movies and so on until it start widespread, and now you have it on YouTubes and things like that. So the same thing for, I think it is a limited market. In 5 years' time, I would say this, for myself, I would start looking at it really 4 or 5 years from now, because I don't see any pressing need. I'm not building a very sophisticated IoT system that require 5G, because I know 5G will not be in for a while. And if it is in, it will be in only for a certain neighborhood and not every neighbor in the community, and so on. So there's no mainstream yet deployment of 5G. It will take at least 3 to 5 years before you really start seeing real application coming along and real penetrations of 5G across in a much decent fashion.
Fossey,
Not sure if I answered your question, John.
You did.
Okay.
yeah, Fossey, I was curious. A couple of questions. What you said about the basically the slicing of the data rates, does it follow sort of an ATM model where you have available bit rate, constant bit rate, variable bit rate? Does it follow that model?
No, no. I worked on an ATM and IP and all these different variation of services, and no, it really you could think of it as virtual private network. It's really a building private, like for example, I mean, traditionally nowadays to build up for banks that they want a total security. In the past, they used leased lines that provided maximum security for banks. Today, if they want to operate within the context of a public network, then you take a portion of that public network and transform it into becoming a private network. And then you have tunnels that really will allow these services only for that branch, and eliminating any kind of hacking and things of that sort, and maximizing the security. So the network slicing is really looking at efficiency. Well, it's which one comes first? I would say its service comes first, meaning that it is a great toy in the hands of operators, which I don't think really, there are only a few of them are studying that, but it's a great toy in the hands of the operator to deploy new services that can bring revenue and deliver services with a specific set of requirements, like a virtual, like for a bank. Or let me put it, let me challenge the status quo which we are in today. Traditionally, rural area will only witness the new technology like 4G, 5G after 5G is deployed in the mainstream. My challenge is that 5G could be used concurrently in rural area using network slicing, because you don't need everything in the network. You only need what is required to deploy a service. Let's say it could be health, help the people in that rural community, or education, as we're witnessing, equip them with a higher speed type of connectivities and so on, or mission critical for emergency, first responder and so on. These could be deployed with a certain slices in the network at a minimum cost, but respecting all the, benefiting from all the technical capabilities that are delivering by 5G without really leveraging the whole, without sacrificing or suffering with the total cost of the 5G to deploy such a network. But it needs the will. It needs the will of service provider. And of course, you will not hear a service provider saying, I'll deploy anything in rural area, although it isn't their capabilities and scope to do it.
The second question I had to do with the replacement of Wi-Fi 6 or whatever comes after it. In other words, get away from the Wi-Fi model and go, if the chips, the chips, both, if you will, the base station and the receiver or transceiver, say in a laptop or in a phone or in a desktop computer. In other words, go from Wi-Fi and eventually migrate to, say, millimeter wave, higher frequency, so that, and also it'd be power limited. So within a house, you would have a router, and that router, instead of having Wi-Fi, would use millimeter wave at very low power, so that, and then you would have a single point of contact, like a WAN, going there out, and that could either be wired or sub-6 or whatever it is. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, do you see that as supplanting or replacing Wi-Fi over time?
Initially, it will continue to complement. I mean, both of them are complementing each other. What you will see really, small cell coming in, like let's say at the home level. So today we have a router and things like that. Then you really have a small cell that can cover providing that higher speed connectivities to the home with all types of devices. Today you have very scattered, limited type of devices, and Wi-Fi can support you, but today we are using it mainly for data connectivities and things like that. But if you start talking about putting the whole house in operations and adding AI and want to see data with insight information and so on, then you need a bigger power and faster means of reaching out. So small cell, with millimeter waves is really having a lot of small cells around, and these will come much closer now to the home or to the curb or and covering the surrounding. I think the only difficulty I understand with the millimeter wave is that it cannot really penetrate concrete. So that's something still a major obstacle. But the threatening part is that 5G will have flavors, will have licensed plus unlicensed. Believe it or not, shortly, 5G will offer unlicensed, very similar to Wi-Fi. And that's where the threat will come in.
So
people then will select which cheaper, which is reliable,
yeah.
Which is guarantee services more than the others, and so on.
So it'll sort of fit in the ISM band model.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fauzi, one point on that's been discussed, but there's a trade-off between efficiency, which is on the 5G side, and simplicity, which is on the Wi-Fi side, and that shows up in chip cost. So where it's been debated, where people have talked about private 5G networks, it's generally been associated, at least in discussion with enterprise, at least at the current time, simply because of the cost issues.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with, yeah. It's I mean, at one point, every place will find their home. I mean, where would the home application will use mostly, and where would the enterprise use mostly? Campus type of environment, and governments and so on, how they would connect with each other, agencies and things of that sort. So I agree with you. Each one has certain level of characteristics and complexity. But at the low level, I think the highly adopted and highly popular that cannot still be beaten is really Wi-Fi. And they are enhancing. I mean, Wi-Fi 6 is really a huge progress compared to Wi-Fi 5. And I'm sure I have a graph showing the progressions of Wi-Fi as well as cellular and how they probably could converge. But at the end of the day, people will look, what is the subject that you need to deploy the wireless connectivities? And they will explore, is it a greenfield? Like, has anything been done before? Or is it migrations from existing legacy to a new technology? And how much it will cost to migrate from legacy to a new technology? Many people will say, I'll stay with Wi-Fi, and just for new portion, I'll add maybe cellular to it, and so on. So there will be all types of mix between the two for deploying a complete type of solution as needed for a given type of requirements or environment.
Fauzi, one other point. I recently worked for the FCC, and they've changed their policy so that as they go forward into millimeter, they're making sure that a lot of the wavelength is unlicensed as well. So as they go into the higher levels, they're continually ensuring that there's a lot of unlicensed millimeter wave spectrum that will be allocated. So consumer and businesses will have a lot of choices in terms of what to use and under what auspices to use it.
Mm-hmm. And most important, of course, is the roaming. Like as you move, I mean, if you add the dimension of wearables, I mean, wearable will take a completely new dimension. Everything will be, I mean, there's a lot of things will be wearable. Your material, your cloth, your tie, your shirts, everything will be, you could think of it as wearable, digitally wearable. And beside the smartwatch, which is the obvious thing. But these things are transforming, and they are decent devices. Are they becoming standalone that like the iPhone that could have its own processor and cellular connectivities? We don't know. I mean, at this point, smartwatch have today Bluetooth as well as can have a Wi-Fi connectivities, but it could have also cellular, no, sorry, Bluetooth as well as could have a cellular connectivities. I would see wearable, depending on the demands, could have some sort of connectivity, cellular connectivities. So it depends what is the slave, who is the master that is communicating the information to. So it's really, there are a lot of things not decided, but as you move to a new stage, it open up the door for lots of ideas and creativity and collaborations, and that could result to a lot of new things.
Oh, Fozzie?
Yes.
Yes, I'm a longtime broadcaster, as are several of the members here. Okay, and I remember back in the day when we started doing high-powered broadcasting in both VHF and UHF, there was concern, a lot of concern about radiation problems and on health. Okay, I looked at your chart and noticed that really it looks like the non-ionizing is fairly safe. I just wonder if that is, my impression of that is true, because I get a lot of questions on a neighborhood group called Nextdoor. People are having a fit about Wi-Fi, I mean about 5G, causing all sorts of health problems.
There are a lot of studies done actually, and all the reports conclusively showed that there is no impact on health whatsoever. I have, beside that major link that I have in the slides, and I could send that separately to John that can distribute it. There's also a video by CNET, I believe, that went really in a layman approach, all the analysis that were done and will be done to ensure the safety of 5G, but it conclusively point out that the 5G has no any hazard implication on health, and have a lot of and actually I came across other references that I could also send it to John as to everyone as a reading material for those who are interested.
Well, I don't think that's entirely true. Not that 5G has an added hazard, but there was a study funded by the FDA. I forget what institute it came out. I'd have to look up, about 2 years ago, that showed a slight correlation at 900 megahertz, a statistical correlation between precancerous cell growth and frequencies at 900 megahertz. That's being investigated, and somebody told me recently the Koreans are going to reproduce that study. It's a very complex study. So there was at least one well-constructed study which might show a link, a very weak link, to non-ionizing radiation. But 5G does not represent any greater hazard. And I know that one of the researchers in that study was asked by a reporter, what would he do as a result of the study? And his answer was nothing.
Go ahead.
People are demanding more studies, and I think the public deserve that. So I tend to agree with you that maybe the message is not really coming clear, because we're hearing, I mean, I heard that also every second month, I hear that type of information. And I don't have myself any kind of deep knowledge in terms of I heard of some cases that were done in isolation that could perhaps represent a linkage, but that really just more of a outlier that require more analysis. So I mean,
this was a very well conducted study financed by the government. It did show a very low level link to, the study had a number of issues. The control group actually died ahead of these were rats. The control group actually died ahead of the irradiated group.
Well,
so,
because of what reason?
Well, there's going to be further studies. These are very complex studies, and I'm not an expert in this field. I'm just saying there is at least one existing study that showed a very low-level link, and the researcher's interpretation was, having this knowledge, he would not change anything himself or with his family. In other words, low risk, low link, but it was statistically significant.
Well,
it is being
more research is needed, right?
Being looked at.
Well,
and the major point is, though, 5G is no different than 900 megahertz. It's still non-ionizing radiation.
I think the question might be, what is the power level of radiation in 5G?
Well, of course, for these studies, they did it at elevated power levels, and they then reduced the power levels to try to find the inflection point. I'm not going to go into the details of the study. I'm not the right person to do that. I'm just saying there is at least one study that suggests a very low-level causal link that is being investigated. It's the only study I'm aware of that has this credibility.
Well, Fosse, I was curious when you have, one thing I believe that the way this works is they use very precise beamforming techniques, correct?
I think so. I'm not aware of the.
I think, yeah. In other words, I think what they do is identify in other words, it's a beamform transmission, and so that, in a manner of speaking, you could say that kind of. And also, I think it's probably time division multiplex, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you have two things, and also you have the inverse square rule, which means that the power of the emission decreases at an inverse square of the distance. So the further away you are from the antenna, and you can see pretty quickly that all of this leads to, so where do you have to stand to get in trouble?
That's what broadcasters use to measure the danger in terms of the broadcast signal, frequencies as well. So if that's used and it's within specifications, at least of broadcast specifications, we should be okay, question mark?
Well, on the cell side, a broadcast transmitter is multi-kilowatt of effective radiated power, where whether either 4G or 5G, cell site is probably just a few watts.
Yeah.
Right. And also because of the beamforming, it's being spread around, in other words, it's being targeted on a slice by slice basis to different receivers. So,
well, on a more immediate level, if we're worried about stuff, people shouldn't be holding the telephone up against their head. That's a radio and it's transmitting. Use your headphones.
Yeah, that's the thing that's pointed out, actually. It's really where the concern is really is from the handset itself close to your ears.
Fosse, I just posted, by the way, it was a national toxicology report. I just posted a link, anybody's interested. Okay. But the study does, again, it's the only study I'm aware of, but it was a very well conducted study, not a meta study, very expensive to produce. It took 10 years. And that was the result, is they found a very low level causal link. But no different. That was at 900 megahertz. Presents no worse and no better risk, as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm. But do you think there is a risk from the power lines? If you're home, let's say under power lines, I think there is a higher risk compared if you are away from the power lines? Are there? No, I'm just saying that because
I don't know. This is something. I was at the FCC when this hit, so we took a look at it, and I'm told by some of the people I used to work with, there will be some follow-on work. Korea is going to try to reproduce these results, I was told. But it's a very complex study, very expensive. So they're coming up with different methodologies to try to reduce the cost of the experiment.
Mm. Can I use it on?
Sounds like a lot of that is going to be really looking at the 5G implementations that will be later as they approach the millimeter side of the bandwidth. So we have years where that's really going to be commonplace. and will give adequate opportunities for research to be done.
Yeah.
Actually, we found that the challenge in 5G was not the hazard, but it changes how you measure things. Is a whole issue because it's somebody noted, it's a directed beam. There's a lot of changes in methodology required to translate the safety standards from sub-millimeter to millimeter. Nothing to do with hazards or effects, but simply instrumentation starts to change.
Well, I think there could probably be many more questions asked and opinions shared here, but we've been at it now right at 2 hours. So I think I would like to wrap things up unless there's any last minute questions. I know Jeff Poppy had posted in the chat link, he had a question. Are you there, Jeff?
Yes, I'm here, but I had a few questions. Maybe I'll just reach out to Fozzie afterward.
Sure.
Post his contact information at some point.
Yeah, if it's not there on his, I think it's in his slide deck, but I can give it to you, Jeff. And I'll look for you, Jeff, Fozzie, to get that information, links with anyone that wants it on the studies and so forth.
Yes, sure. And maybe I'll come back again and we'll take another round. As there are maybe more questions, I could research it more because at this point I wasn't clear. I mean, I have some rough idea what to convey, but certainly I have more understanding of some interest.
Well, we're a very eclectic group too, because we've got some folks in here that are very technical and involved with this. And then we just have people who go, I have a phone. What's it going to mean to me? So it's hard to address one audience because we're many audiences. Is there any last minute questions or things that anyone wants to share?
Umberto dropped off already, but I really appreciated his whirlwind demonstration of what Keynote can do. I don't see him still there, so somebody please thank him.
We'll certainly reach out to him after the meeting. I agree. It was a very interesting introduction to what can be done with Keynote, and I think the thing we can take away from that is open up Keynote and play with it a little bit, because there's opportunities to do things you never expected you could do with Keynote.
John, this is Nancy. I just want to remind everybody that we will be giving out 4 $25 gift card door prizes, and as usual, Tom will send me a numbered list, and I'll use my app to choose the winners, and I will let you know if you're a winner.
Is the person identified as Tom Grimm?
I don't think Tom's on the call. Tom Grimm, that is.
So I just...
He answered in chat, yeah.
I see that.
All right, then I'll leave it. Thank you, Fozzie. It was very interesting.
So I just put a quick window in the chat, a link to something called windowswap.com, and if you go and stir crazy, it's just a delightful little website where people upload views out of their window in case you're tired of looking out your own window. And window-swap.com, and it's random, and you'll end up anywhere in the world looking out their window, and then you just click and you go somewhere else.
Thanks for sharing that.
That's cool.
There's a question about Keynote. Keynote is not free.
Keynote comes with every. It is free.
Yeah, it is.
Free.
It's part of the Mac.
Free with the operating system.
Correct.
You may have to go out and download it if it's not already on your computer, but
You may have to buy a Mac.
Well, you have to have a Mac, an iPad, or an iPhone.
Yeah.
I will tell you, it's so much better than the competition. It's not even funny.
I had no idea you could do all that stuff with it. That is an amazing eye-opener.
You can do some
Well,
really cool stuff with pictures and stuff too. That's really cool.
I was at Macworld when Steve Jobs introduced Keynote for the first time. And I sat there and watched all the stuff he did, and I was just absolutely amazed. And then his one other thing is that everybody in the audience got a free copy under our seats. And I was giving a presentation the next day, and I went back to my hotel room and took that down PowerPoint that I had and switched it over to Keynote, and I've been using Keynote ever since. I think it's fabulous.
I can see I'm going to have a lot of fun with it.
Well, and another thing is it can import PowerPoint files, and you can fancy them up any way you want to.
And you can save things as PowerPoint if you have to send them to someone else.
Very versatile. I hate to do this, folks, but we need to wrap this up.
Well,
We're at
well,
2
Fosse,
hours.
Fosse, thanks very much. It was a great presentation. Yeah.
It's a pleasure being
Thanks,
with you.
Fozzie. I'll be in touch.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Fozzie.
Fozzie.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's fun.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone, and we'll
Yeah.
see you all in October.
Okay, in the thing here.